Hello, Kurt Schneider. Do you know who I am?
I do, John Elenthal. Welcome to another episode of the famous podcast, Smart Drivel.
You took away my second question, which was, do you know what we're doing? But you anticipated that beautifully. So I have a question for you, Kurt,
Yeah.
and this is just an indication of the kind of things I use my limited brain power to think about. I'm driving somewhere this morning. I'm on the highway, and across the highway, there is a car carrier, a truck carrying all sorts of new cars, and it's broken down. And I'm thinking, is that Is that a slam dunk ironic situation? Is that a borderline ironic situation? Or is that not ironic at all?
I
I'd like
don't
your opinion.
I don't think it's ironic at all.
Okay. You'll have to explain yourself.
If it were something that said, if it were a car towing a car and it said best towing around or never falter towing.
This is not a tow truck. This was your regular old car carrier.
I know, but it was a truck and it wasn't really a car and the cars weren't really moving. It's close, John. I, you know,
That's my point. It's not a slam dunk, but it's also not an example.
so
Did you follow
you,
that double negative, Kurt?
I do. You do the crossword puzzle, right?
Yes, I do. The crossword puzzle.
There was a clue the other day that said a broken handle on a hardware store is an example of what?
Irony.
Correct.
Right.
That's true irony.
I believe I got that answer.
How do you stand with that poster behind you so crooked?
Number one, it's not crooked, and I demonstrated that on video last time. And for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, I have a level on my desk, a small level on my desk, because I don't like when things are not level. And this remains perfectly level. So there you have it. There's a little, maybe it's the curvature of the Earth's surface that is making it seem off. So let's get back to this car thing. So I agree it's not slam dunk irony, but I also think it's not devoid of irony like the Alanis Morissette song. There's nothing ironic about rain on your wedding day, right?
Right.
But there's something, and look, if this was a tow truck that was broken down,
That's
that
what I
would be
was saying.
clear irony, right?
Right.
Because that is completely contrary to the purpose of the vehicle, right? That was your
Exactly.
point. Whereas a car carrier, you have this truck that's not working, but it's carrying a bunch of brand new working cars. And I think it's a borderline positive case of irony. I put it in the mild irony category,
I call it neat.
not textbook.
Call it neat.
Okay, that's droll, but that's a whole different category.
It's not irony. It's just neat.
No, we understood, Kurt. We just didn't want to.
Like the knights that say neat, neat.
Yes, which which Monty Python was that?
Holy Grail, babe. Holy
Yeah.
Grail. Yeah. Before we get into today's topic, John.
Are you suggesting that the discussion of mild situational irony is not
No, I think
the
it's great.
topic?
That was just a little shift for a second. John,
Okay.
you're a runner, right?
I love that your setup questions are unparalleled, Kurt. You were like went to law school where you were taught never to ask a question that you didn't know the answer to.
Well, no, I'm trying to just apply the Socratic method to you, John. Instead of telling you something or ask a fact, I'm trying to get you to ask the
Right.
question.
And you only ask things that are on their
Socratic.
face true. Okay, so yes, I do run.
And you've run in races, right?
I love to run in races. It
And
gets me all charged up.
you've run a 5K before, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have you run a 10K?
Yes, sir.
Have you run a half marathon?
Yes, sir.
Have you run a marathon?
Yes, sir.
What is the distance of a marathon?
26.2 miles.
How did we get that?
Well, it's probably an apocryphal story that comes from was it the Persian War? No, it was the Spartan War. So the Spartans were at war with the Athenians, I believe, and news needed to travel from a general in Sparta to a general perhaps elsewhere, and a runner, basically a messenger, was told to run the message from one guy to the next, and that distance was 26.2 miles. And I think he died at the end of the run.
So he actually ran from a town called Marathon, John,
Oh, I guess I left out a really important
to
part.
Athens, and his name was Phippides or something, and he did die
Right.
after he delivered the message. However, here's what you need to know. That
Okay.
distance was only about 25 miles. So
Right.
how did we get today's exact precise 26.2? It was not from that. There was indeed, he is the reason we run this long distance race.
Right. So there must be maybe when we set up to run the first marathon, like in the Olympics or something, it was actually, oh, did it have something to do with the 1908
All right,
Olympics?
John, you looked up in the internet. Come
I
on.
did,
That's
but I did
cheating. Just
because hang
can
on, I'd
I
like to
tell you instead of you looking up and then reading it?
I, a hunch, and I wanted to indulge my hunch, Kurt.
But I
I
didn't
had the
do that
sense
because I
that
look at you.
when we first did one, like an official one in the Olympics, my recollection was that the actual distance of that first one was the 26.2, and that's how it became institutionalized.
Which wasn't right either.
Okay, but that's a really good explanation nonetheless.
Well, it was close. In the modern Olympics, the first,
1908.
but before that, in 1896, it was added to make it 26 miles for the course. By the time it got
Why?
to London, because it just the way they laid out the course, it was because it was about 40 kilometers, which
Right.
translates roughly to 26 miles. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So they set up the course in 1908 to run from Windsor Castle to downtown London in the London Olympics. And they set up the 26 miles. And they realized that they were 385 yards short of ending right below the royal box where Queen Alexandra was. So they added 385 yards or zero point 0.2 mile. And we got 26.2 miles. And from there, it was institutionalized.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just thought you'd enjoy that.
I did, and I had some vague recollections, so I'm sorry I went to the internet, but I was trying to just sort of work it out in my own head. I didn't know that there was an interim step where they made it 26 miles. So I think when you do the math, what a 10K is 6.2, so 40K is 24.8. They probably just made it 25 miles, and then the whole London situation came up and it became what it is today. It's kind of interesting.
But done for, like many things, done for the aristocracy, right? I do this because of this.
We do like to
By the
accommodate,
way, around that time, Queen Victoria's son,
right?
who became king, but before he became king, he was known as Bertie. And Bertie
Right.
was a Beau Brummel, right? We talked about him at one point.
Bertie was the one in the King's Speech.
No,
What that was the king around then?
or not this guy. So this guy was quite corpulent, John. He was
Was he
Queen,
fat?
yes, Queen Victoria's son, but he was also a Beau Brummel, which is a personification name for fancy dresser. And he
Right.
set many, many fashion trends, one of which we follow today, which is we never button the last button on our vest or our
Right.
coat.
That is
And
right.
he did it because he was so fat. But because he did it, everyone followed, and that's how you get it.
So he definitely wasn't the guy that was in the King's Speech who stuttered and had yeah they his doctors encouraged him to smoke as a medical anecdote to his okay. That wasn't Bertie. I mean, that was a different king.
Could have been Birdie, but the one I'm talking about is this guy who was basically his heyday was sort of 1890 to
Okay.
1905.
Why do we say cheese, Kurt, when we are about to have our picture taken?
We talked about this once
We
because,
did?
yeah,
What did we come up with?
well, I'll tell you what it used to be said. Do you know what they used to say?
I used to say a lot of things.
Prune. They would say the word prune.
That's not a good one.
And they thought that it would help, and it didn't. Prune.
I don't think that leaves your face in the ideal position
Or they
for
tell you,
snapping the picture.
they say to say cheese because it leaves your face in the ideal position for snapping the picture.
Right. And that is for us. A lot of other countries have a lot of other words. Back to Sweden for a second, they say omelet. In France, they say marmoset. And I think German photographers ask their subjects to say cheesecake or spaghetti. And cheesecake, spaghetti. I think it all leaves our face in the right position.
And apparently, in ancient Korea, I think it was, instead of saying in olden times, they start sentences by saying, when the tigers smoked.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but I guess tigers used to smoke cigarettes.
Right. So
Crazy. As a
I'm
tiger
going to
without
ask
stripes.
I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're going to be able to answer using your lovely singing voice or some reasonable facsimile thereof.
Okay.
There are a lot of really famous sounds,
Yes.
right? Many of them have been trademarked. They're true signatures. They're part of the brand. They instantly trigger some emotion and vibe in your brain and releases a bunch of chemicals. Can you think of some of the more famous sounds?
Just sounds, not jingles.
I'm just talking about sounds,
I'll give you
actually.
two that are my favorite. Ready?
I would like your two favorite.
Okay, here's the first one.
Dios mío, Santa Maria. What is that? You spraying Clorox on
No, I'm
something?
shaking a cocktail shaker to give you a martini.
Oh, okay. Well, that certainly is a sound. I'm thinking more sounds that have been
I'm Pavlovian, by the way. If
that
I'm in a
are,
restaurant or bar and I hear that,
all right. I think that's fair, but there actually are a bunch of sounds that have been trademarked, Kurt. They're actually assets of a business. Part of the business is intangible assets. So perhaps the most
Intel,
Intel, yeah, the little 5 note Intel bong sequence is bong, is one of the most famous, and it is trademark. Perhaps the most famous, which I'd like you to render for us, are the 3 NBC chimes.
bum bum bum.
Some people think that was actually the first trademark, sound trademark ever in the United States. Can you
Huh.
think of any others?
I think some uh, actors or comedians have done their voice or something, but you're talking about brands themselves, right?
I'm mostly thinking of businesses, yeah, because businesses would have a lot more motivation to trademark a sound as
Well, I
something
know.
they owned, unlike, just the swishing of ice during the mixing, shaking of a martini,
So
which is not really owned by anybody in particular.
as we do shout outs, as we expect to, and we have received shout outs in other podcasts, you and I have mentioned the podcast Acquired before, and I'm currently listening to their episode on Coca Cola.
Oh,
Coca
very nice. Is
Cola,
that an old one?
yeah, I believe so, but Coca
Okay.
Cola has done many trademarks, so I'm sure they have a trademark of a sound.
How about the MGN Lion Roar? Arguably the most famous non-musical sound trademark. Can you give us the sound that Netflix makes when you log on to Netflix?
Ding, dong, no, ding.
Maybe not, but you're right. It is, it is ta-dum. Just
And
two
then
sounds. Ta-dum.
HBO is
What's that?
HBO.
HBO? How about how about what do you think Affleck's trademark sound is?
Avrak.
Affleck. That's correct. I'm trying to think of some others. Mostly there's a lot of startup sounds. Um,
How about this sound? Talk about Pavlovian.
okay, that triggers people to say bless you.
No, that's when you open a beer.
Oh.
And then
Yeah,
glug, glug, glug,
you
glug,
definitely
glug,
have
glug.
identified a theme here, Kurt.
Alcohol. No.
How about,
But I bet
oh,
you
this
those
is
are all.
interesting.
Yeah.
This is interesting. The guy who created Tarzan, a guy by the name of Edgar Rice Burroughs,
Yes.
he actually trademarked Tarzan's distinctive yell. Would you like to give that a shot? You sound like you were just injured.
Well, it's kind of like what's his name? Matthew McConaughey in that movie with
Wolf
Leonardo
of Wall
DiCaprio.
Street.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are iconic, but so there are lots of sounds that have been trademarked by
And
businesses.
then did they eventually go to the PD, public domain?
At some point, yeah, I think the trademarks only last for a certain period of time. But you know what's really, really, really hard
Yep.
to trademark?
A color.
I don't know how you could own a color. I mean, you could own it as part of your brand and your design
Coca-Cola Red,
language.
baby.
Well, you could own it in the context of your logo. You can't own the color
If
red.
it's a Pantene or Pantone
You
color,
could own a Pantone color level. Yeah,
and
a Pantone color, yes.
if you've gotten that, if like you
That is
came
right.
up
That
with
is
it,
your proprietary color, and it needs to be used in your trade dress. So you just can't otherwise go, hey, I would like to own Pantone color 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
exactly.
But there have been a handful of smells
Yes,
that have been trademarked. And
yes.
and the one that I think is most fun, and you can totally understand why that smell is really linked only to this product, and it's a product that we played with as kids,
Play-Doh.
Play-Doh. So can you describe, you're very good at this. Can you describe the smell of Play-Doh? Not an easy thing to describe, but an easy thing to
I got
understand when
it.
you smell it.
Well, they say that your olfactory memory is your best thing for memory. Smells trigger more memories and are deeper than any other your other four
That
senses.
that that means it's particularly valuable to own Marcus smell.
It's kind of, I wouldn't say turpentine, but it's kind of got a little bit of a chemical edge to it.
You know what's interesting is when you submit the trademark to the US Patent and Trademark Office, you can't just do a scratch and sniff. You actually have to describe the smell in words. I'm just wondering how Play-Doh described the smell of Play-Doh. So I looked it up.
By the way, I
Oh,
think what he said is he said, Socrates, before you drink that hemlock and die, let me talk to you about smells. And then he went on to this whole dissertation on smells. And
okay.
then he actually taught Aristotle. Plato.
Uh-huh.
Plato.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
Socrates, Plato, Aristotle.
I'm with you. Those
Okay.
guys. Yes, Plato and Play-Doh. I wasn't listening as carefully as I should. That's very clever. I was trying to find in my notes the language that Hasbro used in its scent trademark
I was
application.
wondering why you were not reacting to my Play-Doh.
It's also possible I'm just slowing down mentally, but I was trying to find the words because I just think, imagine you're a lawyer and someone from the business walks in and says, "Hey, we are going to trademark the smell of Play-Doh." And you say to them, "Okay, well, we're going to have to describe the smell in words to the PTO.
So
What you
that it's
got?"
unique and defensible.
Yeah, just translating the smell into words, in the case of Play-Doh in particular, but here's what they did. So Hasbro, files its trademark for Play-Doh, and it describes the scent. Let's see if this works for you. Describes the scent as a sweet, slightly musky, vanilla-like fragrance with slight overtones of cherry and the natural smell of salted wheat-based dough. Wow.
Who wrote
That's
that? Robert?
amazing. I
Was
don't know if
that?
that describes the smell of Play-Doh, but wow.
I think that was Robert Parker's job before he found wine.
Yeah, so yes, I mean, it's unbelievably specific. I don't know if that's how I would describe the smell of Play-Doh, but since I don't know how I would describe the smell of Play-Doh, I guess that's as good an explanation as any. A sweet, slightly musky, vanilla-like fragrance with slight overtones of cherry and the natural smell of a salted wheat-based dough.
So I just went to eat lunch today at this place in this town that I live in, and it's besides being a cafe, it's also a store that sells plants and a boatload or a buttload, which we know is an actual measurement,
Yes, volumes. Specifically, I think began with wine.
but a boatload of candles and
Oh,
tons of different.
yes.
And I was watching, and there was a lot of couples there, and
Right.
invariably, I'm not being sexist. Invariably, the woman would go first, look at a candle, smell it, and then you see her hand it to her husband or partner, and then he was obligated to smell it too. And
Right.
I was watching the reactions. There was a lot of, well, no, not getting anything.
Well, that's what makes this even more interesting because if you were going to own a smell, it's based on probably a faulty premise that we all smell things the same.
Mhm.
So I totally understand why someone would want to own a smell. It's if it's especially if it's one of the more distinctive properties of whatever it is you own, sell, etc. And we, as you pointed out, it's connected to the limbic system in the brain where memories and emotions are stored. So it evokes us. So it makes sense. Just like it makes sense for Netflix to own, but makes perfect sense. But I just think it's really cool to have to write it down. So Verizon has a trademark on the smell of their stores. Apparently, there's some sort of flowery aroma in all of their stores. I haven't been in a Verizon store in a long time, so I don't know if this is the case or not. But they claim and they own a trademark on some sort of flowery, pleasant smelling scent
Well,
in their stores.
so I have a theory for why they're doing scents or
Yeah.
sounds. And
Yeah.
part of that is as the world gets more global, you want your brand to be recognizable regardless of written or spoken language at you. And to wit, I give you an example of that. As you know, John, I used to work at the Walt Disney Company.
Yes, I did know that.
And I was there at the
So if we
time.
were talking this were reversed, I would say, "Hey, Kurt, you worked at the Walt Disney Company, right?"
Exactly. Yeah, it would be perfect
And
setup.
suddenly we're in the conversation.
Wow, that's a great way to get us in. Exactly. So
Beautiful.
I was there during the time of Pocahontas,
Ah.
the movie,
Oh, not the
not the
okay.
real person. No.
Okay.
And I wasn't there that long ago, plus it wasn't pounded back then. So anyway, I was blown away by the extent of branding that the Walt Disney Company does. And I
Yeah,
learned
it's
kind of
basically that's a huge part of what makes them them.
one of the things they did, and apparently they did it with everyone. They took the song "Colors of the Wind," which was a big song from Pocahontas, sung by Pocahontas, and they had in every language that the film was translated into, which was many, and therefore all the different products, etc.
Right.
They found in each of the countries someone who sounded like the woman who played Pocahontas in America.
They wanted to keep the voice sound as consistent as possible.
And when I would go out and present to partner companies talking about the globalization of this, I would play a VHS tape of that
Oh, so it
song,
was when Pocahontas was alive.
of that song with 18 different women singing the song in their language. And if you didn't care about the words because you didn't understand the other words, you thought it
Sounded
was the
like the
same
same
woman.
person.
And
That's
therefore, the
amazing.
idea was no matter where you are in the world, you hear that. It doesn't matter if you know the actual word, you associate that with right away with Pocahontas.
Yeah, I didn't think of it from the standpoint that customers of most companies today, companies that have any international business, speak different languages, and that makes translating your words into other languages and maintaining the same essence, message, vibe, whatever you're after, is particularly challenging. There is the old story, which may or may not be true, of Chevy bringing its Nova, Chevy Nova, to Mexico and not changing the product name. And for those who speak Spanish, Nova means don't go, doesn't move. So that would be a particularly bad name for a car. I don't know if that's true or not, but it doesn't matter. I think what what this points out is, look, the language of color and the language of smell are universal across humans. I mean, there's some subjectivity to it, but it goes right to parts of our brains that create the kind of relationship with the brand, the emotions around the
Sure,
brand
you
that you
want
want.
an
Words
immediate,
are, yeah,
immediate, right.
words are ultimately not as useful as because people make decisions emotionally and words are processed in the front of the brain, whereas the limbic system, since that's come up again, actually can't even process language. It just processes emotions. Over to you, Kurt.
Well, you work, John, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I do, Kurt.
And you've worked with private equity before, right, John?
I have. Kurt, you have teeth, right?
Yeah. So there's a new word for an old thing going around the PE buzzwords these days. And one of the buzzwords, they always have them, right? Years ago, it was
Yes.
started with pushing the envelope, and then it went to there's a paradigm shift, and then whatever. Over the years, we should actually do an episode on all the ridiculous expressions
I
that
think
we've
we may have at one point,
yeah.
actually.
Well, the new one now is you want to build a moat,
Of course. Of
right?
course.
And
I
that's
mean,
what this that's
Warren Buffett's been talking about that forever.
so now when you trademark a sound
Yeah.
or a smell or anything, it's
Yeah.
furthering the moat that you're building.
No question about it.
Would you
It's
ever have gone swimming in a moat?
have I ever or would I ever?
Would you?
Huh. I wouldn't say no, absolutely, but I think the conditions would have to be just right. It's typically not really built for swimming pleasure, and who knows what's in there, and it's got to be pretty murky and pretty muddy. So I don't think it's an ideal situation. They probably had really dangerous animals in there at one point as part of the defense of the castle, much like you want defenses around your business.
I also
So,
think that once you're in,
yeah,
I think the way a moat was created, there's no way to get out. Like it's right up to the wall. So you got to swim all the way around or go back once you came in order to
it
get out.
doesn't really have banks that look, it's obviously meant to keep people out of getting to the castle. So, in any event, I think your moat, your literal moat is a good example because that's where the expression, of course, comes from. And yes, businesses need to make them as themselves as differentiated and valuable as possible. And I think it's cool that you can own a smell. And I still think it's crazy trying to translate a smell into a bunch of words.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I will tell you
You have a
what,
favorite smell, Kurt?
two things on this though that I'll tell you. Number one, going back to that acquired thing about Coke,
Yeah.
they give Coke the credit for inventing lifestyle advertising. They
Okay.
say before Coke, it was very heavy with copy
Right.
explaining all the intrinsic
Right.
benefits of this. You know, it's made with
Yeah.
sugar and this, and
Yeah.
it gives you this. And Coke said refreshes.
Yeah.
Or you know, everything goes better with a Coke, right? The real thing. And they all of a sudden made you feel for the first time, I feel good because I'm drinking this product. I don't care what's in it. So I thought that was interesting. And then along the similar point, given that you're a marketer, John, I was a marketer. We've both been marketers in our
You
past.
breathe, Kurt, right?
So I was giving an example of this company I'm advising, and I was giving them an example about positioning statements and how a great positioning statement is so unique but and ownable, and you can take another product's name out. If you took the product's name out but another one in, it wouldn't be the
You
same.
failed, yeah.
But also something that is not just, oh, we have, you know, we're toothpaste, we have this and this. And the example I always used to give when I used to give these talks was Tide. Tide came up with a positioning that was basically their unique selling proposition. You're a better mother if you use Tide. All
We
their
we
competitors were talking about the amount of bleach they had, the amount of crystals to clean, the amount of, you know, wrinkle free. And they went right into the heart of the matter. You're a better mother if you use Tide. Whoa, emotional advertising.
we buy
Strong.
products in part because it makes us the person we want to think we are. Yes, the whole notion that facts and figures and statistics really influence people to buy, it's not true. You may use that information to reinforce your decision, but your decision is fundamentally emotional. Let's
So,
get back to some smells before we wrap up.
okay, because I
I
got to
want,
ask you a question.
oh, you answer questions, John, don't you?
Right. I have a
Okay.
question, but it's not about smells.
Okay. I'm going to get back to smells after.
Very quickly. I was at a
Okay.
dinner party the other day, and you eat, right, John? And I was tasked with, in the middle of the dinner, Kurt, come up with a topic of conversation for everyone. So what popped in my head was that lately, John, I feel that for the last, say, 30 years, 40 years, since like
Can you
1996,
say lately and for the last 40 years?
yeah, since about 1996, 30 years, I've been like a really, really expert prognosticator without even meaning it. Like in 1996,
Prevaricator or prognosticator?
prognosticator,
Okay.
1996, I said, I hate Merlot. It's a one night Johnny. 8 years before Giamatti said, I hate fucking Merlot in Sideways. I've been talking about the benefits of a beautiful martini now for 35 years. And now that all these things become now that I've been doing. Anyway, I said to this dinner party, I want you to come up with what the next trend is. What's the next
Okay.
trend? And
That's fun.
and I said, as an example, I'll go first. I think men's hats are coming back.
Like fedora brimmed hats, not like baseball
No,
caps.
like fedora. I could bring my fedora back.
Right. Well, you don't need to bring it back because you currently wear it.
So give me what you think a trend is. Someone else said they think liberal arts education is coming back as the next trend.
What do I think? It's not necessarily what's coming back, but
No.
basically what's going to be big next.
Yes.
Before I answer, can you share a few thoughts on what other people at your dinner party said?
One said liberal arts.
Okay.
Uh, yes, there were a bunch of thoughts.
Yeah.
I've had a little bit of wine, John.
You have a memory, Kurt, don't you?
I had a little
Apparently
bit of
not.
wine, John.
What do I think will be the next big thing?
And there were some good ones that people came up with, which I will remember and tell our audience in the next episode.
I'd like to think that being nice to each other is going to come back in vogue. And a lot of times we swing from one side to the next. So I'm hoping that uh, being cool to your fellow man is going to be a big thing as we react to how brutal things can seem right now. But
Wow.
that's a little too candy ass for this podcast.
I like, you know what a trend that's happening right now is? VCR, VHS tapes coming back.
That's just sort of a retro thing. So
It's not because
here's what
it's
I
retro,
think.
John.
It's
It's
2026.
not because it's retro, John.
I believe that next year, I say this with a lot of conviction, next year it will be 2027.
I don't know.
I'm going to give you some smells that are incredibly distinctive that I kind of dig. Gasoline. I love the smell of gasoline.
People either like it or hate it. It's kind of like cilantro.
Cilantro. I like cilantro. And on that, while we're
Oh,
discussing herbs, I love the smell of basil.
in the morning. You know what? I was thinking the
In
other
the
day.
morning?
I love the smell of napalm in the morning
I
from.
understand. Yeah.
We had an episode years ago where we talked about things that why do they exist, and we talked about mid-level gas grade.
Right.
I think it's
Regular
having its
gas.
moment right now.
I've been getting it because I have a leased car and I'm in the last year of it. I'm like, why would I?
And it's
First of all, I
50
drive on a
cents.
battery most of the time.
It's 50 cents cheaper
Yeah.
than the other one. So it's having its moment. So even mid-level gas can come
I
back.
love the smell of sawdust.
Yeah, all right. I like that. Are
I
any of these trademarkable? No, these
No,
are
but I
just
just think
smells.
it just shows you how distinctive. I think the smell of baby powder is quite distinctive. You don't want to inhale too much of that into your nose. All right, before we wrap this thing up,
People
give me a
love the smell of, and it's actually been proven why. After it rains, they love that smell.
petrichor. There's a word for that.
See?
Petrichor.
No, that's when you drink a frozen margarita too fast and you get brain freeze.
That's sphenopalatine ganglioneuralgia. Petrichor.
And
I'm
there he
looking this
is,
up.
giving you the softball.
Okay. Petrichor is the distinctive earthy smell that arises when rain falls on dry soil. Well, there you have it.
But it releases like dead animals in the atmosphere. That's the actual thing we're smelling.
Play-Doh is a good smell. All right, Kurt. What else is there to say this week?
That's it. This was a great episode. I'm gonna open a martini.
Actually, it's a pretty good sound. You ever consider being in the sound effects business?
Yep. You know what? I was told once, and I've been actually many times, that I talk in sound effects. I can't just say I'm going upstairs. I'm like, I'm going to walk upstairs. And that's the way I talk all the time. I'm going to have a beer. I always add to it, which hurts my acting career because that also hurts the subtle faction.
Yeah. You're probably more suitable for physical comedy than something
Maybe.
subtle and refined.
With that, I wish you adieu. Everyone, we can't wait to have another episode to be able to come to your ears and talk to you a bit. Have a good week.
And maybe in the future we'll come to your nose.
Ooh, nice. The smart
I
Joe will
think people would
smell.
like that, Kurt. All right, goodbye, everybody.
Ciao.